It's green, but now it's on. Because there is a mute button. I was smart enough to turn the mute on, not to turn it off. It happens, right? Now we know what was going on. It was me. It was me. All right. Yes, I remember this. So, finding someone who wants to argue with you is not finding ripe fruit. People that want to argue and debate, that's not ripe fruit. But there is a whole culture in Adventism where we are getting ready for debates. I will get you. I'll prove my point. I'll win the battle. But that's not ripe fruit. When you work with ripe fruit, it is a joy to work with them. It's an easy journey. Yeah, there's going to be a few things in their journey that they're going to need some time on. Doesn't mean it's super fast, but it does mean it's a whole different experience. And I want to encourage you that there's nothing wrong with someone being green fruit. It just means they're not ready for the harvest. It doesn't mean we dislike them. But it does mean we quit trying to harvest them. Just water them, love them, be kind to them, and spend time with them, pray for them. But when it comes to harvesting, go find ripe fruit. Quit spending 20 years on this green fruit, wrestling with it till it ripens up. In fact, a lot of green fruit, if you wrestle a little too much with it, it stays green and doesn't ripen up. You need to let it be. Let it be. Just love it. Where it's at, for who it is. This is something I want to make sure you leave with. I, in the beginning, would study the Bible with anybody who would say yes. That is not as fun as you think it is. But when I started studying the Bible with green fruit, oh, what a joy. I love it. And oh, sorry, did I say green fruit? Don't listen to me. Forget that. Okay, one of us are listening and it's not me. Okay, ripe fruit. When I started studying with ripe fruit, it's a joy. They want to study. Ripe fruit wants to keep studying. Ripe fruit, and I'm just going to say it a bunch to fix this. Ripe fruit doesn't cancel Bible studies very often. Ripe fruit does anything to move the schedule around to be there. Ripe fruit starts applying what they hear. Ripe fruit wants to move forward on most everything. They're going to hit some spots where they're going to struggle, but it's a whole different experience. And so I want to encourage you in finding ripe fruit. How do you know they might be interested? We looked at this morning, you got to spend time with them. Absolutely got to spend time talking to them, listening to them, seeing where they're at. We're not going to discuss it today, but in your conversations, every once in a while, how often? Okay, bring up something spiritual. If you are the preacher, stop. Start being the person who brings up something spiritual every once in a while and see how people respond. If they dislike it, or they shut down, or they give you the cold shoulder, they're probably not someone to start trying to harvest. Just see where they're at. When it comes to your kids and family members, quit pushing, start loving, watching, and sharing something every once in a while that's meaningful to you, but don't go on for 30 minutes. It's a mild statement. See how they respond. If they're open, you might be able to share more. As you're spending time with them, if they start asking questions, you're praying for them. Those bookmarks I gave out this morning, you're praying for them, and they start asking you questions about spiritual topics in general. Why did they come to you? They could have went anywhere. Because you're there. You've built a bond with them. They know that you care about them. They come to you with the question. Now you know, spiritually interested, this person is responding positively to what God's doing in their life right now. God is now inviting me to be a part of what He's doing in their life. If they're making small changes, lifestyle changes are a huge thing. Like if someone's making a lifestyle change, why? Most people do that in response to something they believe God is wanting them to do. They hear something, even if they don't always recognize where it's coming from or even the motive behind it, but they'll move on that. And when you see that, pay attention to it. Were you concerned about the wire? Let me do that for you. They start watching Christian media. Why does someone watch Christian media? Because they're searching. Do people not interested watch Christian media? Why not? Because they don't like it. One, it's poorly made in most cases, low budget, bad actors. Two, it's a sermon. They don't want to hear it. But when they start digesting Christian media, there's a reason. God's doing something, they're responding positively. They ask you for prayer. They're interested in your church. I'm going to mention this as I go on. Adventists need to invite more people to church. I don't know why we're the only denomination that thinks inviting people to church with us is bad. But I went to churches when I was on my journey, anywhere I was invited, even though I didn't look like that person. People will say no, but there's lots of people that say yes to come to church with you. So if they're asking about your church, invite them. They're asking about your church, they're spiritually interested. Something's happening. They like spiritual posts. They're making spiritual posts online. Thumbs up them. Like them. What is it? Like them. Like them. Don't tell them how their theology is wrong. Like it and recognize this person is interested in something spiritual. They might be open to studying the Bible and journeying with God more. They're not finding fulfillment in life. We looked at that this morning. Anything else? I've been praying for some of my family members for many years. So that card you have, I had a similar piece of paper with nothing on it except some names. And I started praying for them. And after a while, a long while, my sister got into Bible studies. My dad got into Bible studies. They started going to church. My mom became pro-Seventh-day Adventist instead of anti-Seventh-day Adventist. And after quite a few years, my dad was baptized, my sister was baptized, my brother-in-law was baptized. They were all baptized together. But the story doesn't end there. My older sister was on that list, and she wasn't baptized, nor was she interested in the Bible or spiritual things. And I was praying for her many years. And one time I was traveling from a camp meeting. I was speaking in a camp meeting over here, and I was headed over here. And on that journey was my sister. And I thought, man, if I just stop at my sister's house, and I looked up the route, and it added 2 hours to her house, 2 hours back to the route. It did not make the route any better. In fact, it added 4 hours to the journey to go see my sister, but I was really impressed. Go see your sister. This will be great. So I just drove to her house and knocked on her door, and she was home. And this sister, we were not raised together. We didn't grow up in the same household. We didn't know each other. We don't have a background in childhood. And we would see each other a few times a year. And when I became a Christian, some of the areas we bonded on disappeared in my life. And so it became where we'd see each other at Christmas for an hour to 2 hours, and that's it. So when I drove to her house, she was really excited to see me. This wasn't something that happened very often. She invited me in. We were talking and spending time together, just catching up with what's going on in her life. And she told me she wanted to show me something. She had just got something brand new. She wanted to show it to me, and she took me to her back room. And in this back room are like shelves and bookshelves, and it's got her knickknacks, and it's got books. It's got all kinds of stuff that she just thinks are important. And really cool stuff, and weird for some of us, but a lot of this stuff in the room. And I'm like, as I'm walking back there, I'm like, oh, I wonder what it's going to be. Because I like finding oddities. I like to collect oddities. And so I'm thinking maybe some weird thing she found somewhere. I walk in the room, and she reaches over to the shelf, and she picks it up and shows it to me. And it's a Bible. She's like, Jack, look. It's my very first Bible. Now, my older sister's older than me. And it's her very first Bible. And she's so excited to show me her first Bible. And we talk about it for a little bit why. And then we hang out a little bit more. And then I got to get on the road. I get in the car in her driveway. And when I get in the car, I heard it. Jack, what are you doing? Get out of the car. Get back in there and offer your sister Bible studies. To which I replied, no. Why would I say no? Time, I got to go. What else? Fear? What kind of fears? She might not be interested in this. She She might not like me if I do that. Our very fragile relationship might fall apart. I could say the wrong thing. I could make her angry at me. No. You guys are familiar. It sounds like you get some of the mindset that I may have had. And I did have that mindset. So I said no. Well, as I turned on the car, that impression came again. Call your sister. Call her from the driveway. Just call your sister and offer her Bible studies. To which I said, no. And as I'm putting it in the GPS for my route, the impression comes again really hard. Just text her. Just text her and offer her Bible studies. To which I said, okay, I'll text her. And I yelled at Siri. Siri sent the text real quick. And immediately I got a response from my older sister. Yes, I'd love to study the Bible. Thank you so much for asking. When would you like to study? I've got Tuesdays, I've got Thursdays. Which day works better for you? Okay, Tuesday. All right, I've got 11 o'clock, I've got 1 o'clock. Which time works better for you, Jack? 1. Okay, here's the link. And she emails me a video link so we can meet online and study the Bible together. Was she interested? Yes, she was interested. Because the issue isn't the harvest. The issue is the laborers. And I was sitting there arguing back and forth with God about someone I've been praying for 10 years. And I didn't want to follow through on what I've been asking God to do in her life. Because I was scared. But God said it was time. And He showed me it was time. I mean, she pulled the Bible off and showed it to me. Look what I got, Jack. It's so great. Well, we started studying the Bible every week. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, we're still studying the Bible. Almost every week. Almost every week. Our schedules are busy, but we arrange them as much as we can. So right after that, my sister found out that she had cancer. And so as my sister was getting to know the God she did not realize existed, she knew God, but what she thought about Him was pretty low because of the Christians she had met in her life. And she started getting to know Him in the Bible, was so excited, and when cancer hit and she went through that journey, she went through it with God. And it was beautiful to see as she trusted God as she's going through these treatments. And then right after that, my niece, her daughter, my daughter's 8. All my nieces and nephews, well, they're quite old. they're quite old, graduated college or whatever they decided to do in life. And I see my niece on Facebook Live trying to kill herself. And I'm calling my sister at 1 a.m. And she goes through this experience of learning some new information about my niece and the struggles she was having in life and the addictions that were hurting her. And my sister is going through that with God. You know, there was a fear I had about losing the relationship, weakening the relationship more, her being angry at me. I just want you to know that was a lie that the devil told me. Not only has my sister got to know God, and it's been beautiful to see in her life, but I've got to know my sister better than I've ever known her in my whole life. So much so that I'm just like, I should call my other sister and see if she wants to study, because maybe we'll get to know each other this great. And we grew up together. Because I forgot that when you study the Bible with people, you get to know them on a level and in a deepness that you don't get to know people any other way. I forgot that truth when I'm there concerned about what I might lose, which was 2 hours a year. What I might lose, the 2 hours a year, compared to what I was about to gain And that 2 hours a year, I understand when we're scared to lose it, it's a big deal because it's all we got. But what was sitting on the other side, I didn't think about how big it was and what was coming. And it's so good. We actually have calls where we just talk about stuff. Like, it has done a miracle for our relationship. And I thank God for that. And I was telling God no. I was telling God no. So offering Bible studies, here's the reality. It has to be done. It has to be done. We can pray to God for them, and God will lead our path. He will take us out of promising ministry areas like Phillips and have us run out into the middle of the desert to meet the one person riding on the back of the chariot who's trying to understand the Bible. God will do that. But we have to offer. Every once in a while, they'll grab you by the shirt collar and demand the Bible study from you. But that's not common. Most people are asking God, or at least some sort of asking themselves, I wish I had some help with this. And God is working it out and bringing us and them across paths, whether that's through Bible study ads online, through the mail, whether it's somebody watching a TV program, whether it's someone walking through the doors of a church, or whether it's us sitting at our workplace and hearing the person next to us. Because it's happening to them too. When I first started my interest in spiritual things, I was in a workplace and there were Christians there, but my friend was the witch, so, but we talked about spiritual things. And both of us had an interest in God, even though she was a witch and I was not a Christian. But we both had it, and we would talk about those things. But there were Christians, but what do you say to those two? Right? We have to offer. And it's a scary thing to offer. I remember this. I had been coming to church now. 3 months I had been coming to church sitting right here with my wife. 3 months every week. And after church one day, I was talking to the head elder up front. Just so you know, he didn't always get things right. Okay, he didn't. He didn't know how. I will tell you this, that today I talk with him every 2 weeks. May not have always got everything right then, but he is one of the only solid people in my life today. One of the very few that I can come to. So he gets it together. But we could get along okay. Just didn't realize how much I needed from him at the time. So we're talking, and suddenly this young man walks across the church. I don't want to call him. Walks across the church. It'll have to be you. All right. You got to come up here. Oh, yeah. There's a reason I bypassed people, because this is weird. Remind me of your name again?
Okay, Dwayne.
Dwayne?
Yep.
Dwight? Dwayne.
Dwayne.
Dwayne. All right, Dwayne, this is going to be weird for you. All right. You're going to be me, and all you have to do is stand there. That's it. And you can't let go until I let go. Okay? This young man walks across the church. Oh, do you like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches?
Oh, yeah, I love it.
Anybody else like peanut butter and jelly? All right, you got some friends in this room. Some of us dislike peanut butter and jelly because when you have to eat peanut butter and jelly, you decide you don't want to eat it anymore. Only when you have to. Anybody like milk with their peanut butter and jelly sandwich or peanut butter sandwich? Anybody like a glass of milk on the side? Almond milk, soy milk? I got one who's like, yes. Those of you who haven't tried that, you should. Let me tell you, best peanut butter and jelly sandwich is the grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Oh, you're missing out. You're missing out. Okay, so now you made it weird. So we take let's say, okay, you got the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. How many of you like to dip your peanut butter and jelly sandwich down in the glass of milk, kind of push it down in there a little bit, and then kind of squish on it, and then reach down in the glass, grab it out, and kind of hold the sandwich here in your hand. Let the wet bread start squishing through your fingers, and the milk's dripping down your wrist. You like it like that? No? No. Okay. Me either. So this young man walks across the church. First time I ever spoke to him was about to happen. And he reaches out his hand and puts into my hand a wet peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And don't worry, it's going to get wet. And he does it. He just holds on enough not to let go.
Oh.
And
just,
hi. So my friends and I over there, so we're learning. So we're learning to give Bible studies, and we were wondering if maybe, I don't know if you want to, but maybe you and your wife would like to maybe let us practice on you.
what did you do like this? Well, brother?
You didn't sweat too bad. I sweated a little, though. I sweated a little. Thank you. That's all I needed. That's all I needed. That was nice. We didn't sweat too much. Sometimes I do that, and, well, it's very wet afterwards. So it was good. You know what I said to that? Now, my dad was a drill sergeant. Airborne Ranger, so Special Forces, Airborne Ranger, and finished as a drill sergeant in the Army. And he taught me how to shake hands. And he did not play around when it came to shaking hands. And that right there was an abomination. And you know what I said to him? Guess what I said to him? Sure. Yeah, I said yes. You want to know the exact words? I can remember the exact words. Yes, my wife has a lot to learn. Those were my exact words. Because you remember, I watched Daniel 2 and Sabbath. And Antichrist, I knew everything needed to be known. Had no idea about anything. And we started studying with those three young men. He was a brand new Adventist. One of the other guys was a brand new Adventist. And the third one was a Adventist who had just come back to the Lord. Wow. And they started studying the very first Bible studies they've ever given in their life. They gave to us. A husband and wife. And I want you to know something. They came out, and those Bible studies were not very good. You wouldn't believe it, but they didn't know what they were doing. Can you imagine they wouldn't know? Their very first Bible studies, they're going to practice on these two. Just so you know, if you ask a friend to help you practice, they'll help you practice. Almost every friend will say yes to that with you. That offer works still today. If you ask a friend, hey, I'm learning to give Bible studies, could I practice with you? Most friends will say yes to that. And we said yes. And I want to tell you something. What'd you think of that offer, by the way? That Bible study offer, what'd you think of that?
What did I think of it?
Yeah. Sincere. You thought it was exaggerated? I am an exaggerator, but that wasn't. He was very reluctant. Was he a little scared? He was. That young man was terrified. Let me tell you, terrified right then. He was close to shaking. It wasn't the most beautiful offer. It wasn't polished. It wasn't together. He was unsure of himself. He was giving me all kinds of reasons why I shouldn't do it. You wouldn't want to, would you? Maybe. I mean, he did all the things we would say, please never say. He did them all. He never looked at me in the eye, not once, while he spoke to me. Not once. That guy looked at the ceiling and the walls and the floor, but never looked at me. And when he was done, I said yes. And you know what I think of that offer? I think it's the best offer I ever got. It's the only offer I ever got. And I thank God for that offer, because no one was getting around to it. 3 months of attending that church every week before someone would offer us Bible studies. We weren't members, please. We're here seeking and searching, and we don't know anything about the Bible, and we need help. 3 months later, someone offers, and it was that scared to death young man who got the short stick and came across the church and offered us Bible studies. Thank God for him. Because the other two didn't do it. The church elder didn't do it. The scared to death young man did it. So proud of him. And I thank God for him, because they're the best Bible studies I ever got. Best Bible study offer and best Bible studies I ever had. And they weren't very good Bible studies, but they're the best I ever had. And I stand here today because someone gave me a really bad Bible study offer and some really bad Bible studies. And I'm here with you today because someone was willing to do it. Yeah. So if you go out and you botch it on the offer, guess what? It's okay. It might be the best offer they ever got too. Might be the only one they've ever been offered, ever. It's better than nothing. It's the best ever. Don't worry about botching it. Some people are going to say no, and it has nothing to do with how well you ask. Some people will say yes, and it isn't about whether or not you asked well or not. It's about whether you asked. And you might give bad Bible studies. Nothing wrong with that. And I say this from experience, because right after my wife and I were baptized, we gave Bible studies. And they were worse than these guys' Bible studies. I know, because I was there. I was there at both of them. We pulled out the Bible study in the guy's living room as we were about to lead the Bible study. And that's when we found out what it was called. We didn't even know what it meant by the title. And we would go through it, figuring it out with this guy. We had no preparation. We had no idea what we were doing. We did it all wrong. Everything you could do wrong, we did it. And at the end of those Bible studies that were the worst Bible studies I've ever seen, and I gave them, and I know a little something about Bible studies. That is my area. And I love giving Bible studies, and I'm pretty good at it. I was thorough. I did it. And at the end of it, I did it worse. I'm like, you guys did it bad, I'll do it worse. At the end of it, that guy was baptized. You can go out and give some bad Bible study offers and ask people poorly, and you can go out and give bad Bible studies. Don't judge yourself. When God's leading you to offer, God will take care of it. God's got you. Just be willing, and God will take care of it. Now, I do prepare now, and I do know what stories I'm going to tell in my Bible study, and I do know what questions I'm going to ask, and Michelle's going to come up, and she's going to take us through how to lead a Bible study and how to put some stories in there, which make Bible studies great. And Angel's probably going to switch our slides over at some point. Oh, I had a video for you. You don't have to hit the video. No. I'll air it after you're done. Yeah, that's a good one after we're done.
So I'm going to take some time to connect the mic, actually.
Yeah. I didn't drop the mic.
This is phone.
We'll do some Q&A as well at some point.
Give me a second to get set up. And while he's pulling that up, I have the privilege of serving as well as an evangelism trainer for the conference, and I've been here for a year and a half. Yes, time flies. And it's just fun to work with people, to share, to learn from others. So I learn from you guys as well. We're going to be spending some time not just about how to give Bible studies. You can give the bad Bible studies Jack was just talking about, or you can give effective Bible studies. And, although it worked in that case, he did tell you it doesn't always work. And so I'm going to just run through first a few tips of what to do to make your Bible studies effective. There's a lot of things that can be done. In the book Gospel Workers, it says, the Bible is our rule of faith and doctrine. There is nothing more calculated to energize the mind and to strengthen the intellect than the study of the Word of God. And I bring this up because sometimes people say, oh, well, I've read through all of the Desire of Ages and Spirit of Prophecy, and I want to teach the people that. But the Bible is our starting point, and it is the point we want them to be gaining an understanding from. We want them to be looking at it from the Bible itself. So when you go to give a Bible study, you want to start with some form of a Bible study guide, something that you can work with. And I've thrown several options there that I've found work very well. This is not an exhaustive list of every Bible study guide you could use. These are some that I've worked with, I like very well. You can also write your own Bible studies, but most people aren't, when they're going to give their first Bible study, they're not, hey, let me write this all out. What I like about these series is that someone has already invented the will. They've sat down and figured out, hey, you got to cover the Sabbath before you cover the mark of the beast. And I share that because if you just say, well, I'm going to write this myself, you may not have that all put together right off. It's not to say you can't write your own set of study guides, but these are study guides that work well with that. I personally use it as written study guides mostly with the studies that I give, but I do tailor my studies a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit about that in just a little bit. So when a lot of people ask the question, what version of the Bible do I use when I go to a Bible study? Well, my favorite is this one. They might say, well, I always read out of the NIV, so, or no, you got to use the old King James Version. Don't even think about using something else. I always tell people, use the same version as the person you're studying with. How will you know which version they have? Ask them, do you have a Bible that you use? Now, if they don't have a Bible that they use, that's when you'll supply one. If you ask at the church, I'm sure someone will have one. I always carry a Bible in my car that is a giveaway Bible. It may not have the largest print. It may not be the fanciest Bible that exists, but it's one that I have this is ready for you. But if they have their own Bible that they use, let's say their own Bible is a NIV, I'm going to work with that, and I'm going to keep in mind how it translates things to make sure that things are understandable to them. Because the Bible was not written in English. It was not a verbal translation directly saying this is exactly what has to be said. What we're trying to get across to people is the thought process. So some practical keys for a Bible study. You want to be on time. If you say, I'm going to be there at 1 p.m. on Tuesday, don't show up at 5 p.m. on Tuesday. That's really rude. You also want to make sure you never assume everyone knows the story. A few years ago, I brought a young lady with me to church. She did not grow up really with a relationship with God. She'd started to study a little bit before I met her. And then when I started studying with her, she got a lot deeper into the Word. But there was a lot of things she didn't know. And I brought her to Sabbath school with me, and the Sabbath school teacher stood up and said, now everybody knows John 3:16, and kept moving. He never shared what, and then a little bit later, he said, and everybody knows the story of Abraham. And everybody also knows, and I was sitting there cringing because I knew she didn't know. And she turned to me a few minutes later and said, what even is that? When we come and say, everybody knows this, if I tell you, Carol, everybody knows this, what's your response to that? How does that make you feel? Let's say, if you don't know about it and I just came and said, everybody knows that.
I'm going to assume they do not understand what they're talking about.
Yeah. But if I'm coming and telling you that, it either makes it sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, or it makes you feel like you're stupid. Like you're just like, man, everybody knows this and I don't, so man, I'm a lost cause. There's no way out here. If everybody knows this and I can't seem to figure this out, well, maybe I'll just quit early. Just forget about it. So instead of saying, everybody knows John 3:16, you might say something like, hey, let's go to John chapter 3, verse 16. This is one of my favorite verses, just shows how God loves us. I know what it says, but I don't have to make you feel stupid for not knowing what it says. And the same with stories that we know or that we may feel are common stories. we want to be intentional to just take them to it and walk through it with them. We want to be patient, kind, and compassionate. Another key, we want to make sure that we're working off of Scripture alone. Don't bring up something that you can't prove from the Bible. Well, caffeine is a sin. And if you touch it, if I can't prove that clearly from God's scripture, from the Bible, I probably shouldn't start there. And I'm not making a deal about that. I'm just saying, if I start there in my Bible study, I don't have good evidence to prove that. Yes. Ellen White on this page over here said this, so we don't want to do that. We want to pick a set of study guides and stick with it. You don't want to say, okay, well, this week we're going to cover lesson 1 from Amazing Facts, and next week we're going to cover lesson 24 from It Is Written, and the week after that we're going to cover whatever. Pick something and stick with it, start to finish. Yes, be consistent. You want to build on these things. There's a reason why they put them in those orders. Might have worked with Jack to start with Daniel 2 and then follow it with the Sabbath and the Antichrist. But there were a lot of pieces that were missing. A lot of pieces that were missing. And it very rarely works. There are times when God will impress upon your heart to share something out of order. And if that's what God is impressing on your heart, do it. But you got to be clear that that is what God's impressing. Remember, it's the second Bible study the second person I ever gave Bible studies to. On our second Bible study, she was bugging me about what happens when you die. I really have to have an answer to this question. And I was like, we're a little early for that. She was asking. I said, well, we're going to cover that in a future Bible study. That's an amazing question. It'll take longer than I can answer in just a few minutes here. I said, okay, no worries. We'll talk about it next time you come then. It's like, it's going to be a little more than just next time. The third lesson I get there, I really have to have this answer now. And so I just decided to ask her, why is this question so important to you? And I began to walk through with her, hearing her story of how she had been searching. And she had gone to a Mormon church, and apparently the Mormons believe that when Jesus died, he came to America and preached to people here in America, and then he was resurrected and he went back to over there. So that is what they teach. And she was sitting at lunch one day with the Mormon bishop and a bunch of children and other people, and she asked that question, and he proceeded to say, well, this is what happened. And she goes, that doesn't make any sense. And they were just like, hush, hush, shut up. You can't ask that question. We don't ask questions in front of the children. We don't disagree about anything spiritually in front of them. And she walked out and never returned because that was ridiculous and didn't make sense. Praise God, she walked out and said, that doesn't make sense. And she was still asking this question years later. And I made the decision in that moment to answer her question. I changed the Bible study that day to death, even though it should have been on the Great Controversy instead. And we went through what happens after death. And she turned to me and said, at the end of that study, where's your church and when do you meet? I want to be there this weekend. Sometimes we can jump out of that order, but it has to be when God is making it clear to us. And she's still studying. 5 years later, she has not been baptized. But she's still studying and she still attends the church. Being intentional to listen to God on those things. Stepping into that space to say, hey, there is an order. There is a reason to share things in the order that it is. So I did step out of order with that one, and then we stepped right back into the order where it should have been. But this solidified it for this young lady. And that's sometimes what these people need. Another thing you want to note is words that may have changed meaning. A few years back, I could have a conversation and say it's a gay day. You don't say that today. you know, you'll be attacked if you say such a thing today. You could say, and there are words in the Bible that do not mean the same thing as they do to us today. When the Bible tells us that we're to fear God and give glory to Him, it's not the same thing when we think of the word fear. And so we have to recognize that those words that have changed meaning, the words that are unfamiliar. If you go through the study on Daniel chapter 2, and it talks about the image being crushed to pieces by the rock, and then it was blown away like chaff of the summer threshing floors. Who knows what chaff is? I mean, you probably know because you've studied the Bible and know that. Do you know it because it's something that you deal with every day? I only know that because I've researched to know what it is. I remember in college, I had to read a bunch of different things, and this one paper that I had to read, I had to actually Google 3/4 of the words just to know what it was talking about whatsoever. Like, just to even get the context of this paper, it was so theological that I had to Google it just to get what's even happening here. What am I looking at? What are they trying to tell me? Because I had to then be able to respond to this in class, and I'm going, I've never seen this. So we want to pay attention to the things that may have changed meaning in some way, shape, or form. We want to find someone to go with us on the study. That way, if there's a situation that comes up, the other person can be praying. Also, it makes it easier if one person has to go out of town. It's not like, okay, well, we've got to build a whole nother system of bring somebody they don't know. One person can go out of town, the other person can bring somebody else with them, and it's not like, okay, well, send somebody they have no connection with. You want to acquaint yourself with the lesson ahead of time. And I'm going to ask, Jack, can you pass these out for me? And we're going to just take a look at a little bit the study guides, because if you're going to give a Bible study, you want to make sure that you're acquainted with that lesson. I'm going to skip that for time. You want to try to spend somewhere around 45 minutes to an hour in giving the Bible study, and try not to stay longer than an hour and a half. So we're going to look a little bit at the layout of the Bible study, and then we're going to dig into how to give it. Yes, I need it. Doesn't matter.
You got a Spanish one, I'm sorry.
If you've got a Spanish one, you need to raise your hand. He'll swap out for you. No, it's fine. It's okay. I speak Spanish as well. I'm not fluent, but I do speak it. You need English? Do you have an English one? Okay. Here. No, it's good. So you'll want to spend, when we're looking at the layout of how to give a Bible study, you're going to spend the first 5 to 10 minutes being social. Why would you want to be social at the beginning of your Bible study? Make them comfortable. I heard something here. Get to know them, develop a relationship. And that's key. We have to develop that relationship. We got to get to know them, because if it's just that annoying lady keeps coming over that telling me I have to study the Bible. I don't know anything about her. I don't know them, but that's just the Bible study woman. We want to build a relationship where when they have something going on in their life, they can call us up. My friend Kayla, I met her first when I was giving Bible studies to her. She requested Bible studies. And we do still study, but we don't study as much just because I've moved away and the timing is a little bit different. But she'll call me up every couple months and just like, hey, this is what's going on in my life. And that's the relationship you want to build. That they will call you up on their good days, on their bad days. Hey, that's my friend. In fact, I tell people, don't call the person that you're studying the Bible with, oh, it's my Bible study. Don't do that. This is my friend Jane. If you get into the habit of calling them my friend Jane, you don't ever, well, yeah, Jane's my Bible study. Doesn't that sound awkward? Jane's my Bible study. Yeah, she's just my Bible study, my Bible student. It sounds disconnected. Anyways, off my high horse. You'll spend 5 to 10 minutes socializing. You don't want to make it a whole 45-minute social thing, because then they'll be like, you know what, I kind of got other things to do. I came here to study the Bible, not just to hang out, but you want to make sure you connect with them. Then you'll take some time to pray together. Spend about 3 to 5 minutes reviewing the previous lesson or answering questions. You'll spend about 35 minutes going through the Bible study. You'll spend about 1 minute or so to call for the decision and pray. You'll notice at the end of pretty much every Bible study guide that you can find, there is a decision question at the end. And you can ask that question or something in that direction of that. You'll want to give them the Bible study guide that you just went over and leave. Now, it's not to like, okay, I gave it to you, I'm going to run out the door as fast as I can, but make your way out the door soon. Don't then spend another 30 minutes to talk about the football game and then go. So what you'll want to do when you're giving the Bible study is to have them read the verse that you're working with. You'll ask them questions to help them answer that question. So you'll see here in the Bible study guide that I've given you that there are questions, there are Bible verses, and there are blanks. When you're giving the Bible study, it's best not to give this to the person that you're giving it to at the time. And the reason for that is, if you give me something to read while you're talking to me, I may zone out and read it instead. Oh, this is really cool. And then you ask me a question of, what? You mean I was supposed to be listening to you? And so we want to give them the space to pay full attention and not get distracted with something we want them to focus on later. And so we don't want to give it to them right away. But we're going to take a look at how asking questions a little bit, because some of these questions that are given, although great questions, aren't necessarily answerable from the text. If we notice in the Bible study guide, under question 2, it gives us the question, in the story of King Nebuchadnezzar, how did God reveal his trustworthiness? Does everyone see that? And the verse that it gives is Daniel chapter 2, verse 1. So I would tell them, could you read Daniel chapter 2, verse 1 for us? And if you read it from the Bible study guide, you may miss some things. So it's, could someone read Daniel 2, verse 1 for us, actually? Let me check my time. Daniel chapter 2, verse 1. Yes.
Now in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his spirit was so troubled that his sleep left him.
Thank you. Now, this verse discusses several things. What do we see happening in this verse? There is a who in this verse, which is Nebuchadnezzar. There's a timeline in this verse. What is that timeline? Second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. And what happens? He has a dream, and what's the result of his dream? He can't sleep. He's troubled. He can't sleep. Now, all of these things are important things that we can note, and we can ask them questions to make sure this is what you would call gauging questions. And these kind of questions are saying, do you understand this? Because especially when someone is new to the Bible, they may not understand the specific things that are being brought up. Now, what I'll usually do when I give this study is give a little background. Who in the world is Nebuchadnezzar? Because they're going to have that question, okay, he's reigning over what? Where? Who is Nebuchadnezzar? So I'll share, God's people had been unfaithful to him. And as a result, they ended up in captivity in Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar was the king of Babylon. But then I want to gauge and understand, did they understand what they just read? Do they know who this is? So I'm going to ask them questions to gauge that understanding. And so what we want to think about is how to ask questions that gauge that understanding. So we've noted those key aspects of what's happening in the dream. We've noted that it's the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. We've recognized that he had a dream, that he was troubled in his sleep. He was unable to sleep. And so we look for ways to ask questions that bring out this idea. Can someone think of a question that would answer, how do we find out, or how do we get the answer that he was unable to sleep? What kind of question would we ask to get that? Okay, that might be, that's a great question, but it's not something that I can directly answer out of this verse just yet. You're good. So we're looking at he was unable to sleep. How would we find, what sort of a question would we ask to get that answer? And that's also a great question. That's connecting with them. You were about to say something? What does it mean to be troubled? He was bothered. He was disturbed. He was unable to sleep. The kind of questions we want to ask is, what was the result of the dream that he had? The only answer they can come up with from that text is, he was troubled and he couldn't sleep. And so asking questions that gauge their response, their understanding is key with that. Now, sometimes we get scared of silence and we just make it a run-on sentence. I do that sometimes myself. But it's okay to ask a question and wait for an answer.
The question in the Bible study is not directly answered by the text.
It's not. And that's why we want to make sure that we ask gauging questions that aren't just because, in the story of King Nebuchadnezzar, how did God reveal his trustworthiness? Daniel chapter 2, verse 1 does not answer that question at all. It simply just starts the story. And so we want to note that, hey, that's a great question, but the verse does not answer that question. The entire story does explain an answer to that question, but we can't pull it just from there. We want to be willing to wait for an answer and rephrase our question if it's not something that they can understand. Some ways that we can do this, like we talked about just a little bit, is preparing a question that will help them answer the question that's there. We may also help them fill in a blank of the verse that so we might say something like, so if we ask the question, what was the result of this dream that he had, and they don't catch it, they can't figure it out, you can say, well, read it again with me. It says, now in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his spirit was so, and they're reading it with you, they're going to troubled that his sleep left him. Oh, that was the answer you were looking for. Or exchanging one word for another in times when there's something that isn't something that's daily used, something that's understood well. So you want to read the question, read the verse, and find the answer. Like we see here in this question, the Bible study guide question does not answer that question. The verse that is there does not answer the question that's given there, and you need to flesh it out a little bit deeper. I'm going to skip that. So when you're working through how to ask questions, you want to look at these key elements in there. Not every verse is going to have all of these things: who, what, when, where, why, and how. But these are the kind of questions you're going to ask. Who had a dream? Why couldn't he sleep? He was troubled, he was bothered, he had a dream. All good answers. When did this happen? How did he respond? Simple, short questions based off of this list can be fit into every single verse that you work with. Who's talking? Who did this happen to? Who responded? We can switch to the other PowerPoint. When we're working through how to give a Bible study, asking questions is your best friend. Because if I talk to you for 30 minutes, how much do I know about you if I don't let you talk? Nothing at all. If I talk to you for 5 minutes, but I listen to you and I let you answer questions and respond and communicate, I may know a lot about you, but if I'm just word vomiting to you, or if you're word vomiting to me, it's not pretty, but it's reality. Yes. Now, yes. And like in this case, this story that we're looking at, it is a story, and so you can't just, jump it in as, I'm going to just take this one thing. If you notice in the Bible study guide, question 3 starts with Daniel chapter 2, verse 10. How many verses are in between verse 1 and verse 10? 9 verses. And so you can summarize that up, or you can just read through it to help them have that context better. But you'll recognize that context is a key way to gain the understanding of all that's going on in the story. We're going to shift gears just a little bit. We've talked a little bit about the practical of how to ask questions in a Bible study. We're going to shift gears to how to illustrate a Bible study. You may say, okay, where does this fit in? I mean, yeah, it's part of giving a Bible study, but do I have to illustrate a Bible study? I don't like illustrations. And maybe you're someone who hates illustrations. Personally, I love stories. I connect with stories. And I know very few people who hate stories. So if you're one of those people, I'm sorry. But I found it to be very valuable. It's something that people can understand and connect with well. And it's not just something that I do, it's something that Jesus did as well. In Signs of the Times, May 1, 1901, it says that Christ's words were forcible and easy to be understood. His illustrations were those best calculated to impress with convincing power the minds of all classes of people by the objects with which his hearers were most familiar, on which their eyes rested daily. He illustrated his lessons. He was intentional to find ways to illustrate his lessons with things that they would see, that they would understand. She continues on saying, Christ illustrated divine truths, knowing that afterwards and whenever his hearers should see these objects, they should recall the words he had spoken. So when we're sharing Bible studies with people, we want to not just put it as an abstract, the Bible over here way back when said. But we want it to be something that they can understand, hey, when I see this, I get this. When I recognize this, that will help me understand the Bible better. Nehemiah chapter 8 and verse 8 says that they read from the book of the law of God, making it clear, giving the meaning so that the people could understand what was being read. This is something that is a part of giving Bible studies even back then. Making it clear, making it understandable, making it connectable. So why do we illustrate Bible studies? We want to encourage people to connect with the lessons, and stories help people to remember. I remember stories that I was told when I was a very small child, and I don't even remember some of the things that, the day-to-day things in my life. Like, I remember children's stories from when I was like 6, and my memories start when I was like 9. Illustrations help people engage. Charles Spurgeon stated that a sermon without illustrations is like a house without windows. You can build a house without windows, but do you enjoy being in that house? No. A house without windows is functional, but it's dark and sad. But it's not just about a sermon, it's also because really what a Bible study is to encourage someone to one-on-one connect with the Bible and understand it for themselves. When Jesus spoke to people in Matthew 13:34, it says that he spoke all these things to the crowd in parables, and he did not say anything to them without using a parable. What is a parable? Anyone know? It's a story. It's a story specifically that does what? Teaches a lesson. So Jesus was intentional to tell stories for a purpose. Jesus' method was parables. He also used object lessons. Can any of you think of some object lessons that Jesus used? Let's say the kingdom of heaven is like unto a sower, a mustard seed. Anything else? a lost coin. But it's still an object lesson that he used. It's likened to a woman who's lost a coin. A prodigal son. Jesus says, it's like when there's a pearl of great price, recognizing the value and importance of what could be offered. The kingdom of heaven is like this. And the thing is, there's things we can learn from everything around us. If you spend enough time working with anything, you can learn something about it that you can equate spiritually. Gardening is an easy one to use, but you can also use construction. You can use driving. You can, if you think about it, you can draw the connections, and it's something that's every day. Something that someone will understand. For example, I could give something like, well, hey, when you go to work, when you leave your house to get to work, you know where you live, and you know where you're going to work. There are probably thousands of ways that you could get there, technically. You could drive all the way around the world and back to the spot that you work at. That's not the most practical way to get there, but it's a route to get there. Or you could take the route that you take that's probably the quickest route to get to work, the best way to get there, and it's going to get you in the amount of time you need to get there, the time you've planned to get there. And the thing is, you can go on all kinds of detours sometimes on your way to get to Jesus. But those detours, just like driving all the way around the world, can be done, technically. Obviously you'd have to get on a few ferries or planes. Can technically be done, but it's not the best way to do it. Or you can just go straight to Jesus, and you won't find yourself frustrated and annoyed on the process to get there. And that's just a simple lesson from daily life that can be worked with. But there's a lot of different things that you can use from daily life. And when I'm giving a Bible study on the 10 Commandments, I take some time to process with people, what are the 10 Commandments? I don't just say, there are 10 commandments, keep them. There are 10 commandments and we should keep them. But you want to walk with them, what does that actually look like? How do you keep the 10 commandments? And so you'll walk through with them what they actually say. And so as I do that, when I come to the second commandment, talking about not making any graven images, I like to give them a very practical example of that. Almost everyone has some form of a coffee table in their home. And so I'll tell them, hey, well, how would you feel about me if I decided I was going to bow down and worship your coffee table? Everyone's like, excuse me? Because why would I worship their coffee table? It's a coffee table, for crying out loud. But then if I say, well, what about if I go outside and chop a branch off the tree and carve out a replica to your coffee table and decide to worship that? And it's something that brings it practical for them to say, oh, this isn't just something that you're just saying just to say it, but this is what this practically looks like. We want to connect on a personal level with people with the illustrations that we use. We want to consider personal situations that they're going through. If they live right next to a railroad track, I might use an illustration about trains. If they work at a restaurant, I might use illustrations about cooking. If they work at a lumber yard, I might use illustrations connected towards that. If they work with children a lot, the illustrations I'm going to use are going to be connected more towards children. And it looks like my clicker is quitting. It's okay. Is it? There we go. One of the worst sermons I ever heard was when I was in college. A gentleman decided that he was going to preach a sermon about truth. Now, is truth important? Yes. And he chose to define truth. If I were to ask you today, what is truth? What is the definition of truth? What might you tell me? The Bible is truth, not a falsehood.
Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life.
That's what I was looking for. That is a very simple, very clear. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. This gentleman decided that the way to define truth was to pull out the concordance and proceed to read every single verse that had anything to do with truth as the sermon, and then sit down. Now, you hear Pastor back here laughing. He's probably looked at the concordance to know how many verses there are. I will tell you that the only reason I know what his intention was because it was the title, and I was also supposed to be judging the way this guy was preaching because I was taking a preaching class at the time. And I remember just being like, this is, not only is it boring, but I also, after he read the last verse, he sat down and I still didn't know what he thought truth was. or what, not even what he thought, but what the message he was trying to bring across was. Because it was just throwing all of these together. Intellectual, but nothing personal.
You know,
Yeah.
I see that a lot in Christianity where people are very intellectual, but they don't go deep with it.
Yes. Now, if we shift that from a Bible study about truth, as he basically did, proof texts about this is what truth is, what if we did that with the Sabbath? That's what happens when we give a Bible study without illustrating it and connecting it personally to the people. It's just to the point where, okay, that was a brain freeze, information overload. I can't handle this mess. And I still don't know what I'm supposed to know from this. We want to connect it with a way that they can understand it, they get the message, such as building it around the story. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. I don't need to go through the whole list of every possibility if I get that one message across. And when you're working to build a Bible study, what I always tell people to do is open the Bible study to the last page. This uphill question that's being asked here needs to be your focus, what you're building your Bible study towards. So if you're looking to ask them a question, are you willing to trust God and His plan for your life? And instead you're talking about how trees are green, maybe you're going in the wrong direction. Now, it's not to say that you have to spend every piece of your study exactly covering that exact answer to that question. But if you're not in the ballpark towards that, You can't ask them to respond to something you haven't directed them towards. So when you go to prepare a Bible study, start with the end so you know where you're going to. Not as when you're giving it, but when you're going to set it up, have the end goal in mind. This is where I'm going, so that I can walk my illustrations in that direction, so that I can carry the verses that I'm sharing in that direction, so that it's something they can connect with and they can understand. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. If you have any questions for Michelle, we'll be taking some questions. I'm sure you might have some questions not on something we shared, as long as it has to do with what we might be able to answer, which is sharing Jesus. So those will be welcome. We'll need a mic for that. In the meantime, I was thinking about what I could possibly add to what's been shared. There's one item. I scratched off a bunch. You know, it is a privilege to journey with somebody, to be a part of their walk. You know, what often happens in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I know it happens in other Christian denominations as well, but as Seventh-day Adventists, I'm going to speak to Seventh-day Adventists. What often happens is that after we baptize people, we leave them. And it's such a bad case in our church that I think it's 49%, just about 50% of all new believers will be gone within a year in our church. Our young people are flooding out the doors. Existing members, 1 in 3. 1 in 3 leave the church. And when all of them were interviewed and asked, they did a nice study to reach out and just say, hey, why'd you leave? You know that they found that only 5% of all those who had left the church said it had anything to do with what we believed. What it really came down to was their experience in the church, not with our beliefs. Much of the stuff in the church has to do with people not fitting in, too much of a focus on minor issues rather than the major heart of what we're really about. In fact, when you went through the whole list, and it was pretty exhaustive list, you found out that what people really need was someone to care about them. They needed someone to invest in them. They needed someone to journey with them. And when it comes to a lot of our new believers who are coming into the church, we put a lot of work into getting them baptized. We drop lots of energy and money into seeing someone baptized, but after they're baptized, sometimes we don't put any work into that. And we saw that statement from Ellen White in that dream. She's like, did you not come here to harvest? Then why have you not prepared? Are you not prepared to take care of the harvest? Like if you've come here to get fruit, then you should be ready to take care of fruit. And so I'm going to ask you this question, and I don't need an answer, and this isn't any condemnatory phrase. I've been to a lot of churches. I've been in the church for a while now. I know the situation in most places. It's not all places, but most places. Are we prepared to take care of them? Do we have an intentional plan in place? Or are we hoping that it works out? It requires an intentionality. It requires discipleship. And discipleship does not happen by accident. Sometimes it happens because there's the dear brother that showed up at the church that God led to that church that day to intervene for my wife and I leaving the church and discipled us. And he was a discipler. It is what he was about. And God brought him to that church. And he had to build me a friend group and a discipleship group to journey with from other churches because it didn't even exist in my church. It was just so foreign to that church and the culture of that church. It requires helping people understand what they believe. It requires helping people answer some of the tough questions they're going to get now they've made the decision. It requires teaching people how to share their faith. A lot of us go out after we've learned it, and the first thing we share is Antichrist or Sabbath. You need to start keeping Sabbath. And we forget that, well, that took us years to grab a hold of, and we're pushing it with other people we don't always remember, so we need to be taught how to do that. It means taking turns having those people over to our house and hearing their story. Let me tell you, as a new Adventist, Sabbath is one of the worst days of the week. It's great in the beginning, and then it becomes the worst because, well, your old friends, they wanted to party, and now you don't want to party. They don't want to hang out with you. What do you do on Sabbath if you're not partying? I don't know. Who do you hang out with when your family says, oh, you're better than us, are you? And that's what our family do. You think you're better than us? Oh, you're not drinking? You're better than us? You're not doing drugs? You think you're better than us? You think we're going to hell because you're so great? What do you do when you used to hang out with these and have all these activities on Saturdays and now you don't? Well, you go sit in your house by yourself and you pray for the sun to go down faster because it's killing you. And Friday night becomes just torture. So are we having Friday night Vespers? Do we have something for them to do on Friday night? Are we doing some classes over Daniel in the church? Are we doing some small, even if it's in the church, are we doing a small group where they're getting together? Are we taking them out for bike rides? Are we taking them out for four-wheeling? Are we taking them out, I don't care if y'all shoot. If you go shooting, you're taking them out shooting. Just get them together and do something with them and then help them grow spiritually. The discipleship handbook, it's got a bad rap. I don't know why. Because if you've read it, you know it shouldn't have a bad rap. It's very structured. Thank God someone took time to put a structured plan in place. And you could follow it how you want to, but there are so many great resources for us to invest in someone journeying as well as leading in that journey and the different people that can take part. It was a long time before I figured out how tithe worked. And it was a long time before I figured out ordaining elders. No idea what that was going on. And then we're bringing up oil and we're, praying over somebody. I'm like, what in the world's happening? There's a lot that goes on in the church that person still needs to have an experience with. Much less, no one ever came along and taught me how to read the Bible for myself. No one helped me have a devotion life. No one taught me how to pray. I was taught Sabbath is this day, but not how to actually have a daily experience with God personally. And most people don't have that when they come into the church. So I want to encourage you to take time to invest in that as you're thinking about, hey, maybe you don't have someone getting ready to come, but be ready to receive the fruit so that when the fruit shows up, you can take care of it. It's a journey. We've all made mistakes, and you will. It's okay. I'll tell you what, even if you're older than I am, I was happy you were there. Even if you're super ultra conservative and I'm a weirdo just getting off of drugs, the fact that those people were part of my life and would hang out with me at all and just laugh and talk, I loved it. I loved it. When you're the youngest person in the church at 30, you get what you get and you're happy to have it. And a lot of times we think they won't be happy with us because we're older or we're just not in the same group or we don't understand. That's not it. We're both Adventists together. We get it. That's where we start. So I wanted to encourage you in that. As you're studying the Bible with people, this is one of the things I love about journeying with people in the Bible beforehand, is that when they decide they don't want to come, you're not okay with it. When they decide they're going to stay home this week because they just don't feel quite up to it, well, you're going to go by their house this week and see how they're doing. You're going to pray with them, and you're going to bring them some popsicles and some medicine. And you're not just going to sit by as they stop coming, because you've spent the past year meeting with them every week. You know their story. You know where they've been, where they're going. You know their hopes and dreams. You know their fears. You know their family issues. You know it all because you've been with them. So when something's going on, when they fall back into an addiction, and it happens more than we want to discuss in the church, people fall back into addictions after they're baptized. Happens all the time. That is normal. We don't want to talk about it because we want to act like we got to get it together. But I'm pretty messy. If you ever got to know me really, be like, that dude's messed up. Because I am messed up. I'm a messy guy. But I got a perfect Savior. You feel sorry for my wife? She does too. She's also very messy. We're both very messy together. Do what? We're made for each other. And all of us messy people are made for each other here. We are. It's just true. And when we're okay with that, so when my friend falls back into addiction, guess where I'm going? To see my friend. I'm not like, hey, you're right, you can't come to church here anymore. Because that's what the thought is. Oh, I'm no longer good enough. I've got to get this fixed before I can start going again. And the last place I want them is trying to fix it out there. I want them fixing it right here. I want them coming here knowing that I love them as we work on getting clean again, getting free from this addiction again. And that's part of the journey. If you read what Ellen White wrote about working with people and with addictions, she called it the nicest work. She didn't mean it was nice. She meant the hardest ever. That was what the term meant. It was a hard work, but that people are going to fall, and you need to be there, and you need to keep being there. You don't give up on them because they fall. Addictions are rough stuff. As a prior addict, and still someone who goes to all kinds of stuff because I just replaced safer addictions for destructive addictions, but they're both destructive and they're both addictive and they're both poor coping skills. I know what it's like. So I'm very thankful my church has an addiction recovery program because I need that. I need people that get it. And so I love that. And people that you have coming in, they need to know that it's a safe place for them. And that if they fall, it's still a safe place for them. That's an important part of who we are as God's people, loving other messed up people, because we all need a Savior. So, journey with people. Do what? Oh, yeah, we had a video. Yeah, let's see if this thing works. Make sure I didn't miss the point I was going to say, because I think I did. I got there, but I want to make sure I didn't muddy it up. Taking the time to journey with someone means that we journey with them even after they're baptized. So if you've seen the cycle in your church, as most churches and many churches have, where people come and then they go, start investing beforehand with them, journey with them beforehand. If you weren't there, journey with them after, but get invested in their life, and seeing them leave isn't as easy. It isn't something they're doing. There's this weight here where I need to go see them. I'm not okay with just saying, well, they weren't ready, or they just didn't love the truth enough yet, or the many other excuses I've heard since I became an Adventist, and they're not valid. In almost every case, they're not valid. Studies have proved it. All right, we got a video. We're going to show this video. We're going to enjoy this video. I don't know what video it is. I possibly have the wrong one on here that I'm thinking in my brain. Well, you hit the button, we'll see what we have. I know I was supposed to hit it, but let's see, it's an old video. Is it the right one?
I had been wanting
Oh,
to
it's
learn
the right
about
one.
Jesus. I just didn't know where it was going to come from.
So I knocked on the door, and almost instantly the door came open just about like this, and I see this face, this happy, joyful face at the door. And I told her what it was there for, and she says, "Oh, you've got our Bible studies. We've been looking for these." And so I handed her the two for the two individuals. And about that time, a face pops over the top of her, and she says, "Well, what about us? We send in Bible study cards too. Don't we get Bible studies?"
It kind of had slipped a little bit that we had sent those in, and then when they started talking about, the cards being sent, I was ready that night. I'm like, okay, like, why don't you guys come in now and do it? We just got our Bible studies, and that night we all opened them and we were like, wow, like, this little card probably has more information in it than anything our whole lives.
So by the time we were through, we'd handed out 5 Bible studies in that house, and that was exactly what we had.
These people just keep asking questions. They're like sponges. They want to know more and more and more. And they would just be on fire. Joe and Bev were so excited.
Going to the Revelations seminar every night, you got to meet so many cool people, and you've seen so many lives changed, and seeing all the baptisms, oh my goodness, that is just so awesome, so overwhelming with joy.
You know, the Holy Spirit was at work here long before we came to the door. Long before we ever knocked the first time. The Holy Spirit was just totally at work.
That's right.
And we saw transformation of lives instantly.
100% lives changed. If I could look back at when we signed that card saying that we wanted the Bible studies, I would have never, ever, ever imagined what it would be like today. It's so cool.
There we go. Yeah, Bev and Joe, they've been Adventists their whole life. They've held every position you can think of in the church. They've been all over. But that is the very first Bible study they ever gave. They had never done it before. And it blew them away. I hear this all the time from people that I share with, I train and journey with for a little bit. Will send me messages, text messages, emails, letters, calls. Just be like, Jack, I'm giving Bible studies now, and it's the best experience I've ever had in the church. I've been in this church my whole life, and I've never had experiences like this. There's something special about that journey, and that changed Bev and Joe's complete Christian experience. It blew them away, and they were pretty wonderful to start with. We had some Q&A time that Michelle said that we had, and I told you as well. She may not have told you, but she told me, so I told you. And we had some Q&A. That was how that went, wasn't it? So we have a Q&A. Did we have any questions before we wrap up today?
Yes. You said to use the same Bible that they are using. But if they're using the Bible like the Catholic Bible or the Book of Mormon?
So the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon is. On? Okay. The Book of Mormon is not a Bible. It is a book, and so that's not something that, like, Mormons do actually use the Bible.
King James Version
Bible, but and the Book of Mormon for them is a plus on top kind of thing. So they do use the Bible. Now, there are some versions that are not as preferred, but the Catholic Bible does teach the beliefs that we do. It just has the Apocrypha in the middle.
Yeah. No. That's a misconception that has been spread around the Adventist church. I don't know where it came from. You can go into any Catholic bookstore, open up a Catholic Bible, and read the 10 Commandments in a Catholic Bible the same way they read in your Bible. Yeah. What's different is the catechism. So catechism are what they study on becoming Adventist, and that has...
Catholics.
What did I say?
You said becoming Adventist.
Man, sorry, I don't know what's up with my brain today, but we've been doing a lot of this. Becoming Catholic, thank you for straightening that out. We don't want to get that out there. You can erase that one online. Oh, that's going to be spread everywhere now. You know what Jack said? We use a catechism to become Adventist. So you got a catechism to become Catholic, and that's just what that is. And so when you go through that, you'll see a different one. When you get a plaque of the commandments, you will likely get the altered 10 Commandments. But when you look in the Bible, you'll get the real one. But here's what goes on. Catholics aren't encouraged to read the Bible. So they may have it, but they're not encouraged to actually use it. And when they go to church, they don't use the Bible. They use pre-printed books that have everything you'll be saying that day, including what may be brought out of the Bible. It will be there, already planned for the year, and you open it up. And so that's how that has happened. They just keep people from the Bible, but they haven't changed the Bible itself. Okay.
Now, there are times when the version of the Bible that they have is not something that works well for them. I had a lady that I studied with that had a very, very low reading capacity. And what I mean by that is she could read, but she really struggled. She struggled with the simple things. Now, some of the most faithful people to go door to door and talk to people about their faith also happens to be Jehovah's Witnesses. And the only Bible that she had was a New World Translation.
Yes.
And I started working with her with it. Just, this is my Bible. This is the one that she had. And I very quickly realized that she could not, like, people complain about King James English. You haven't seen the New World Translation.
I've seen it.
It is much more complicated than King James English, even though it was written by them in a much more recent thing. They wanted it to sound like King James English, so they put it that way. And I finally was like, I'm struggling listening to this. You're struggling reading this. And I went out and I bought her a different Bible because I could tell it wasn't something she was personally connected with. It was just something she had.
So on that point, I remember studying with someone with the New World Translation, and there are verses that are written differently because of the view of the divinity of Christ for that specific denomination of Jehovah's Witnesses. And so there were specific verses that were altered.
Yes.
And that one was kind of an issue, but we still studied with him. We were still able to study the Bible with him, but we became aware of this, and so we would look it up and be like, yeah, some of these verses have been changed, but not all of the verses are changed. And so we became aware of that for ourselves. I will say this, that when I study the Bible with people, most of the time, the Bible that they have is the Bible that they believe is the one they are reading. Right? That's the one. If it's King James, it's King James. And there is a big push where most people think the only Bible you can read is King James. And so you will meet people and they'll be like, well, I have to read this one. And I'm like, okay. That's all I say. Okay. Well, after a while of them reading the Bible for the first time and they don't know how to say sheweth or showeth or
Whatever it is.
knoweth, and they don't know what some of these words mean. They're completely lost, and they're lost after a couple months of building a relationship. Sometimes they're open to me buying one for them that reads a little more at their reading level. And when they are, and they usually ask. Like, because I bring it up in the beginning. Oh, I could get you something. No, this is the one. This is the one. Oh, okay. All right. And then later on when they're struggling, I'll be like, hey, you mind if I read it from another version so you can hear it? And I'll read it from another version so they can hear it. And I'm like, oh, that's so much easier. I can actually understand what it says. I'm like, yeah. And eventually they may ask me, and I will go buy them a Bible. And I'm also with Michelle. I can't buy them the $100 and something Bible. But if you want to buy them a $100 and something Bible, you may. But I usually save that for the baptism gift rather than the we're just starting studying gift. A little differently. Question over here.
Another question. I have several people that I have got Bibles for. And what I do is I buy them a regular Bible, King James Bible, and then I buy them their words and say, read them together.
All right.
So that they can get Jeff Buckle's understanding as well as Europeans.
Okay, nice. Come up with something that works for you.
Yes.
It's nice to, you obviously care about them.
I want them to understand what they're going through.
Yeah. That's a good gift. Nice gift. Anybody else with a question? It was a good question, by the way.
Okay, so I actually have several questions.
All right. Am I starting this time? You're going second?
I will, how do you do the next step after, let me put an example. We have somebody that he has studied everything. He has gone through many, many of these. And he wants more and more. And he has gone through everything. In fact, he comes to church. Many, many times he comes. But he is not making that final decision. And it's, of course, he has been baptized in a different church, so he doesn't see that as necessary. But he still has a lot of strongholds in his life. And so how do you go to the next step? I mean, here he comes and we love him and people talk to him, but he's still not, I guess I can say 100% committed.
So when it comes to this,